Hey guys, before tonight's journey begins, take a moment to settle in. Find a position that makes your body want to rest. Let go of all the tightness. Let your shoulders fall naturally, slowly releasing the day's weariness you've been carrying. Tonight, we're going to experience a full day living downstairs in a grand countryside manor, from the cold before dawn until the last candle is carried upstairs late at night. There's nothing here that needs you to tense up or pay close attention to. The story moves at the pace of your breathing just to gently guide you into sleep. If these peaceful journeys help you rest well, you're welcome to follow this channel, so you can come back whenever you need nights like this. A quiet like or a comment below telling me where you're listening from tonight helps others find these stories. There's no rush to do anything though. You can save it for morning or never get to it at all. Right now, nothing will demand your energy. There is only this, the warmth surrounding you, night slowly falling, and a long, gentle story waiting to begin. If your eyes are tired, let them close slowly. Let your breathing slow down. When you're ready, we will step into a cold, quiet manor, entering the last traces of night before anyone else wakes. The manor I want to take you to stands somewhere in the English countryside in early autumn of 1861. The leaves have started to change colour, but it is still too dark to see things clearly. Above us, those spacious, elegant rooms lie silent. The owners are sleeping behind thick doors, their warm beds already grown cold at the edges from a few hours ago. That is not where we're going tonight. We head downstairs. We walk down a narrow staircase at the back of the manor, passing through a green tweed door that separates two worlds. Below it, it is a whole different kingdom. Stone floors replace carpets, plain whitewashed walls, a long corridor lined with rooms you would never see in the drawing room, the pantry, the scullery, the distillery, the servants' dining room. This part of the manor is never shown to guests. Without it, nothing upstairs could happen. Before a new day begins, let me show you what it looks like here. A row of bells hangs high on the corridor wall, each inscribed with a room's name. Now they hang silently. Soon they will ring one after another, and someone will rise to answer each call. This is the spacious kitchen, whose stove will stay briefly cold for the next few hours. This is the housekeeper's room, where a bunch of keys hang quietly waiting on hooks. Nearby, boots line up by the door, waiting to be polished. I want you to stand here with me right at the corridor's entrance and watch how the day flows through this place. It's not a remarkable day, not one anyone would remember. Just an ordinary day, the kind repeated thousands of times without a single person recording it. Imagine how much quiet work supports one comfortable life. The warm room you sit in, the meals that appear out of nowhere, the clean linens, the lit lamps, the hearth fire that seems never to go out. Long before you wake up, and for a long time after you fall asleep, someone is taking care of it all. Tonight those someones have names, hands, and many small complicated tasks to do. If you were the one keeping such a manor running, waking first and sleeping almost last, I'm curious what it would feel like from the inside. Not heavy exactly, but familiar. A rhythm your body would remember. We will follow that rhythm from start to finish. From the cold dark before dawn while the manor is still asleep, until the last lock clicks shut and the last candle is blown out. We will move through different rooms, flowing between pairs of working hands, never rushing, stopping wherever gentle details can be found. Right now, the corridor is empty and silent. The bells have not rung yet. The stove is not lit. Outside, the sky is just beginning to prepare for morning. Somewhere in the manor, in a cold little room beneath the eaves, someone has already quietly risen in the dark. Before anyone else wakes, this day has already begun. Let's go find them. The room under the eaves was the coldest spot in the entire mansion, and also the first place to come to life each morning. It was a small room, a narrow bed, a washstand, a single chair, and a row of hooks on the wall. One side of the ceiling sloped sharply, so that a tall man had to bend down to reach the little window. If you looked outside through that window now, you would see almost nothing. Only darkness mixed with a faint grey, hinting that the sky had not yet decided to welcome the morning. The candle on the washstand had burned down to a stub. On the bed, Under a thin blanket covered by a coat, a young man named Will had just opened his eyes. He did not need to be woken up by anyone. He had trained himself not to need anyone else to wake him. Deep in his mind, a tiny biological clock had memorized the time, able to wake him in the dark as reliably as any alarm bell. Like all of us, he lay still for a moment longer, gathering his spirit at the edge of this cold morning. He swung his feet onto the bare floor. The new day had begun. Try to imagine the moment when bare skin first touches the cold floor. There was no fire here, nor had there ever been one. The water in the washstand's pitcher was so cold it made him gasp as he poured. By the faint dying candlelight he hurried to wash, then half blind, dressed by feel. First came his work clothes. Rough overalls, a vest and a coarse jacket meant for dirty morning tasks. His good coat, the one to wear before his master, still hung on the hook. It must not get smeared with shoe polish or kerosene. He picked up the candle stub and cupped its weak flame in one hand, shielding it from the cold wind. He stepped through the door onto the stair landing. The back stairs of the mansion were a world of their own. Narrow, plain and steep, they were built for utility, not show, winding down through the centre of the house, the part no guest ever entered. Will knew them in the dark like the back of his hand. He could even walk them blindfolded. On most mornings, by flickering candlelight alone, he came very close to doing just that. Down past floors where his family still slept behind heavy wooden doors. Further down, one more level below, finally, to the green coarse cloth door at the bottom. Through it lay a cold stone corridor running beneath the entire lower house. The air changed here. It smelled of stone and cold ash, of the fire banks that had burned out yesterday, of soap and animal fats, and a faint sourness from the washing troughs. The corridor was silent. On the wall above his head, the row of bells hung still. The first bell would sound hours from now, but he planned to finish much work before it rang. Before work began, there was something worth pausing to think about. In a place like this mansion, the comfort of those upstairs depended entirely on a day that had already started long before they woke. The fires burning to warm them, the boots they slipped on, even the lamps lighting their letters, all prepared by unseen hands hard at work most of the time. It was quiet, tedious work. In these earliest dark hours, much of it fell to a young man with a candle. He didn't see it as anything special. To him, it was just an ordinary Tuesday, and there were boots to shine. So let's start with the boots. The boot room was a small closet off the corridor. In the morning it was Will's little kingdom. Inside were rows of the household's boots and shoes left out the night before, each pair carrying the unique soil and dust of its owner's day. The master's heavy high riding boots, the lighter town shoes, a lady's pair, delicate and pale in colour. He picked up each pair in turn, beginning the task in the ancient fixed order. First, he used a stiff brush to clear away the dried mud so as not to scratch the leather beneath. Then came the shoe polish. It was a thick black paste with a secret technique a skilled hand remembers even if the mind forgets. A knack for spreading it evenly without too much. Then came the long part. No rushing allowed. Polishing. Brushing over and over, growing lighter and lighter, until the dull leather began to reflect a soft glow. Then a brighter shine, and finally the toe of the boot showed a small, bright, candlelight reflection on the surface. It was slow, repetitive work that somehow soothed the spirit. The arms moved, thoughts wandered free, and the morning passed in this rhythm. If you have ever lost yourself in a small manual task, you understand this special calm. The world shrinks to what's right in front of you. Only boots, brush, and slowly brightening shine, and nothing else demanding anything. Will had done this 1,000 times. He would do it 1,000 times more. On a cold, dark morning, with the mansion sleeping upstairs, there was no better way to begin a day than with something that simply needed patience and gave silent, visible results. When the boots were polished and lined up, he moved to the knives. In this age, a mansion's knives were not the shiny stainless steel we know today. They required more care. The steel blades dulled and discoloured after every meal, and had to be hand-cleaned and polished each morning. For this, there was a sharpening board, a long, flat plank covered with leather, a fine red powder, and a powerful arm. The powder was sprinkled on the leather, the blade laid flat against it, then rubbed patiently back and forth. The blade was pressed and drawn until the dullness faded and the steel shone anew. In such a big house, there were many knives. By the time the last blade was polished and put away in its coarse flannel-lined drawer, the dawn light had shifted by a fraction, and Will's hands were grey with dust from his work. It's worth pausing to think how much of this simply vanished in later times. Boots that polish themselves, knives that never lose their shine, lights that come on at the flick of a switch, so many things that once made mornings long and full of small chores would one day be completely done away with until a whole world made up of patient, heavy tasks like these was forgotten, as if it had never existed at all. But that time was still far off. This morning in this mansion, every bright knife and every gleaming boot was the work of hands struggling in the cold, and nothing was automatic. After the knives came the silverware, a different and more delicate task. The mansion silver was its quiet pride, where even a breath or a fingerprint left a mark. It could not be scrubbed like a knife, it had to be treated gently. Will took a soft cloth and a fine polishing powder made just for silver. He worked slowly, handling each piece with gentle, even strokes. A spoon, a fork, heavy flatware. He breathed onto the metal, then wiped it, breathed and wiped, until the darkness of night faded and the surface glowed softly and deeply, seeming to absorb the grey morning light into itself. On the larger pieces, the silver bore a small family crest raised in relief. His cloth carefully rubbed into every fold and curve of the crest, those hidden places where careless hands left unfinished work. He counted each piece as he finished, then put it back in place. Silver was a trust, and trust had to be counted, put away at night, and taken out again in the morning, so the numbers were never wrong. While polishing silver, there was a thought worth lingering on. So much labour was not spent on creating something new, but on preserving what already was, on blocking dust, loss of shine, and the slow daily return of disorder. If even one day were neglected, these things would begin to devour the house. Nothing here kept itself bright naturally. The shine on spoons, the polish on boots, the clear lampshades, all were small daily victories over the laws of nature, quietly won before breakfast, broken again at nightfall, and won again the next morning. It was a task that never ended, only sustained. In these tasks, whose sole purpose was to begin anew, there lay a strange and comforting dignity. Next were the oil lamps, a task that demanded care. Untrimmed wicks made lamps smoke. Smoky lamps blackened the ceiling and polluted the air. Each lamp required proper care. The wick's burnt edges were carefully trimmed clean and even. Oil tanks were filled, not too full, not too little. Glass shades were lifted, breathed on, then wiped with a soft cloth until no blemish blocked the light. He tended each lamp in a row, watching everyone trimmed, filled, and sparkling clean, ready to provide steady, bright flames when needed. The light the family took for granted at night was prepared in the dark morning by familiar hands, wick by wick. Alongside the lamps was a smaller task: candles. In that era, a mansion was not lit by oil lamps alone. Every room had candles, on fireplace sconces, side tables, and beside every bed, and these too had to be tended in the morning. The burnt-down stubs from the previous night were cleared away, holders wiped clean, every drip of cold wax removed, and new candles prepared for the coming night. Will gathered the candle remnants in a box, because nothing was simply thrown away here. Even the collected wax had use elsewhere in the house. He pressed the new candles upright and tight into the holders, then put each holder back in place. It was a small thing. Through it, the long night of the mansion, hours away at twilight and unknowing, was silently arranged in the grey first light of morning. The next task carried an often overlooked tenderness. Will took the master's good coat to the brushing board and began using a garment brush with long, even strokes. It was an unusually intimate act, caring for another person's clothes. He knew the slight wear at the elbow, the slightly loose button, the faint but unique scent of the fabric. He brushed away yesterday's dust and readied the coat. While doing so, he quietly prepared the family's public image for the day. Upstairs, the man would slip into that coat without a thought as to how it became clean, ready, and waiting. And that was the point. This work was meant to vanish beneath the smooth surface of the day without leaving a trace. Meanwhile, the rooms ahead still awaited, and Will moved through the last darkness among them. The furniture must be polished, the sturdy mahogany pieces glowing with the warmth of a good family. Little wax, a soft cloth, and patient arms wiping along the grain until the wood reflected deep, lively sheen. In rooms still dim but slowly greeting morning, he moved quietly from one piece to the next. A long table, a sideboard, a tall grandfather clock. His footsteps barely sounded on the soft carpet. The rooms held their breath around him, filled with traces of other lives, and in this brief moment before the house awakened, they belonged entirely to him. At last. The turning point of morning arrived. Now the heavy, dirty work was done. Boots gleamed in a neat row, knives shone bright in their drawer, lamps were trimmed, the coat hung tidy and furniture gleamed. Will could take off the rough shoe-polish-smelling morning jacket, wash his sooty hands and put on a clean light jacket, one fit to be seen in. The change was small, but it marked everything. In just a few minutes, he had crossed from hidden labour in darkness to visible service in daylight. There was one final task before the mansion fully woke, a gentle one, setting the breakfast table. He brought a white cloth and spread it over the table, smoothing it flat with the side of his palm until there was not a wrinkle. In a sequence he had practiced 1,000 times, he laid out the place settings, plates, cups on saucers, the little knife he had polished an hour before. He moved steadily now, the worst cold and darkness behind him, and the room began to fill faintly with light. While he worked steadily, the morning quietly arrived. It came so slowly he could not say exactly when the change began. The window that had once been pitch black was now grey, a grey gently warming into the first faint gold of dawn in the countryside. The shapes inside the room became clear. The candle, still burning out of habit in the cupboard, now looked tiny and unnecessary in the growing light. He bent and blew it out in one breath. The mansion above him still slept. It was ready now. Boots waited, oil lamps waited, the table was set, and the day the masters would walk into had already been quietly and bit by bit built in the hours they would never see. Will stood for a moment in the quiet, bright room. His morning work was complete. Outside, beyond the windows, the first birds had begun to sing. Somewhere overhead a bell was about to ring. The first task of the morning is to let the sunlight in. In a bedroom upstairs, the curtains are still tightly drawn and the air is thick with the stifling feeling left behind by sleep. A young maid named Betsy walks lightly across the carpet, her hands grasping the heavy curtains, pulling them open along the curtain rod. Then come the blinds, folded and pushed to the side of the wall. At that very moment the morning, pale, cool and expansive, pours through the tall window, filling a room that only moments ago was immersed in shadow. She stands for a moment in this fresh light. Then she pulls the top of the window sash down by an inch or two, just enough for the stale nighttime air to slip out and the fresh morning breeze to take its place. This is the beautiful way to wake a mansion. Not with noise, but with light and air, room by room, carried out by hands that have long been busy. Come stand with me at the edge of this room and watch how it all happens. Opening a mansion is a quiet craft, much of it unknown. The rooms must be brought to life before the residents awaken. The chill in the air must be driven away and warmth restored. All traces of yesterday must be erased, so that the new day begins as if it were the very first day. It is patient, composed, repeated work. There is a deep order to it, and once you understand that order, it becomes a kind of beautiful music. Before warming the room, the first thing is to clean it, starting with the fireplace. The grate is cold now, filled with ash and dead coal left from last night's fire. Before the fire can be rekindled, it needs to be cleaned and prepared anew. This is the least pleasant chore of the morning, but it comes first. Betsy kneels before the fireplace with a box full of brushes and cloths at her side. She rakes the cold ashes into a bucket, carefully avoiding letting fine grey dust scatter around the room. She sets aside the good coal fragments, they can still burn again. In a carefully managed household, nothing is wasted. She cleans and blacks the grates, bars and back, rubbing with a stiff brush and dark paste until the iron has a muted, even shine. It is a cold and dirty job for hands. When finished, her fingers are grey and chilly. The grate gleams, and that is what matters. There is something to notice in this order of tasks. The hardest, dirtiest work is done first, in the cold before any reward of warmth. This is the opposite of how we like to arrange our mornings, putting off unpleasant things until half the day has passed. Here, there is no delay. The fire must be burning by the time the owners wake. Starting a fire is not a minute-long task. Cold drudgery always comes first. Warmth must be earned. There is a simple wisdom in this order, honed smooth by long use. Now the fire is laid down, and that also follows a proper order. First comes twisted paper, then dry kindling crossed on top to allow airflow, followed by carefully placed lumps of coal, small on the bottom, larger on top. Lighting a match, holding the small flame to the paper, and then comes the wonderful uncertain moment. Will it catch? The paper catches fire and curls. The kindling begins to crackle. Then slowly, the first true warmth of the day starts to breathe into the cold room, flames casting a gentle flickering glow across the fireplace. Betsy watches for a moment to be sure the fire is fully alight, then stands and goes on to other tasks. The room will warm itself as needed. That is her whole purpose here, and it is enough. After lighting the fire, she turns to the floor. The carpets need sweeping, and there is a trick to sweeping carpet without raising dust. First, she sprinkles some damp tea leaves saved from the teapot gently over the carpet. When the broom passes over, they catch the dust and press it down. She sweeps evenly, bringing tea leaves and dust together in front of her, pushing from the far side of the room toward the door. The process is slow and rhythmic and strangely satisfying. Behind the broom, a path of clean, dry carpet widens, and the room feels fresh and neat. In the morning light that slants through the window, she can see a faint haze of dust drifting, turning golden in the beams, then slowly settling. If you have ever watched dust dancing in a beam of morning light, you know what a peaceful, wondrous sight it is. It asks nothing from you. It just floats, spins, then slowly falls, sweeping a quiet room in that dim morning light, with the gentle crackling of a newly lit fire behind you. That is no hardship as outsiders might think. It contains a kind of calm. The room comes into order in your hands, every sweep adding one more bit of neatness. In that brief time, the world is no bigger than the patch of floor in front of the broom. After the floor is swept, she picks up a duster and begins cleaning surfaces. Every flat surface in the room is wiped down. The mantelpiece and the objects on it, cabinet tops, dressing tables, picture frames, the rungs and backs of chairs. She works her way around the room in a fixed route, the same every morning, so nothing gets missed. Because the surest way to miss something is to change the dusting order each day. She lifts small ornaments, dusts beneath, then places them back exactly where they belong. This last step is more important than people realise. If an item's position is even slightly off, it will be noticed, and the quiet art of this work is to leave no trace, so the room looks as if it has always been spotless, as if dust is a problem that happened somewhere else. Before the room is completely tidied, the bed must be made, a craft in itself. Making a bed is not just about straightening covers. In a careful household, the bed is fully stripped and remade, and for good reason. A bed slept in all night must be aired before being remade, or it will never feel truly fresh. The bedding is folded back and placed on a chair. The bed is left open to let the cold air blow for a while, breathing fresh air inside. Then the real work begins. In those days, a good bed had many layers. Under the soft mattress, there was usually a large feather bed that must be shaken, beaten, and flipped so it does not get hard and lumpy from the weight of the sleeper. This shaking and flipping is heavy. Awkward work requiring strong arms and skill to do well. The bottom mattress is also flipped in sequence, head to foot one day, side to side the next, so it wears evenly and keeps its shape over many years. Carefully, layer by layer, the bed is remade. The bottom sheet is stretched tight and flat without a wrinkle, so no creases will press into the owner's skin during the night. Then the sheet. The blanket is shaken out and spread smoothly. Finally comes the bedspread, pulled taut with crisp square corners and a smooth surface. The pillows are fluffed and plumped and neatly placed at the head of the bed. When finished, the bed looks fresh, square, and inviting, every crease perfectly placed in, as if no one has ever lain there and never will. A good bed should look like that. Tonight it will be slept in again. Tomorrow it will be fully stripped and remade all over again. This endless cycle repeats each morning. Bed making is never finished. It is just done again and again. There is a part of the morning routine that is simpler than the rest. Done quickly and neatly, the washstand must be put in order. The basin is emptied, rinsed and wiped dry. The water jug is refilled with cool, clean water and put back. Towels are straightened on the towel rail. Soap and other toiletries are arranged tidily. This is humble work, caring for someone else's most private morning needs. A good maid does it quietly and properly without thinking too much. Dirty water is replaced with clean, mess turns neat, and everything is ready for the owners to wake and find their rooms seemingly tended by themselves overnight. She gathers up what must be taken away, carries it off, leaving the room clean, aired and warm with nothing missing. Then come the stairs and the hallways, which belong to no one and must be cared for by her. The Grand Mansion's stairs demand a lot of silent upkeep. The central carpet must be swept step by step from top to bottom, so the dust always falls onto the steps not yet cleaned. The wooden edges visible outside the carpet must be wiped and kept shiny. Brass fittings must be considered as well. This mansion is full of small, shining metal parts that will dull if neglected. Carpet rods on the stairs, door handles and push plates, door knockers, the bell pulls. Each must be taken in turn and rubbed with a soft cloth and a bit of powder until polished, wiping away the fingerprints left from yesterday. Polishing brass is endless work. Any item once touched will darken again, and a mansion is touched all day long. Watching a row of stair rods shine in the morning light, each glowing brightly, knowing it is your own hands that make them glow, there is a simple pleasure in that. By now, the house has begun to wake around her. As rooms are opened one by one, the morning air has spread throughout. The first faint sounds of the mansion, waking stir, doors somewhere opening, footsteps on the landing. On a distant hallway wall far below, the first bell of the new day rings out, clear, bright and certain. Soon another bell rings. Bells are how the mansion speaks to those who serve it. Each bell is connected to a room, and each ringing summons something. From this moment forward, they will ring in their own language throughout the day, and someone will answer each call. The first bell in the morning is like a threshold. Before it, the mansion belongs to its silent workers and its light. After it, the real day begins. When the bell rings, there is a thought worth pausing on. Looking back, we tend to divide the people in such a mansion into two kinds. Those serve and those who serve, the one who rings the bell and the one who answers it. Indeed, the gulf between upstairs and attic rooms is real and wide, but the story told by this day is much more subtle than that. The entire operation of this vast machine, its warmth, order, light and comfort, depends on thousands of small acts of care. These acts are carried out by people, many of whom take a genuine and private pride in doing their work well. A well-made fire, a thoroughly cleaned room, a window opened at the right moment, they are not meaningless to the people who do these tasks. They are visible proof of skill in a day, and skill itself is a quiet satisfaction, wherever it is found and whether or not anyone is watching. After finishing the bedroom, Betsy goes downstairs to open the rooms below. Before the owners descend, The sitting rooms and lounges must be aired and tidied, and the same gentle ritual unfolds downstairs. Curtains are drawn, blinds are folded, windows are pushed open, sending out the night air and inviting the morning breeze in. In these larger, more elegant rooms, light sweeps over polished floors and thick carpets, glides across shine on furniture, and touches the cold, silent, unlit fireplaces waiting to be fired. She moves among them, opening doors and windows, airing, straightening furnishings. The rooms seem to wake at her touch, stretching their limbs in new light, shedding the stillness of the empty night, ready for the life of the new day. Here the mansion passes gently from one phase of the day into the next. Morning has fully come now. Wide, pale light covers every floorboard. The fires have started, warming rooms upstairs. The windows stand open, welcoming the cool air, curtains softly swaying in the breeze. Bells ring rapidly downstairs. Footsteps sound on the stairs. The entire mansion, shut tight and steeped in darkness and silence just an hour before, has now awakened, breathing and brightening. Betsy pauses before a tall window in the sitting room, gazing out over the autumn garden slowly changing colour. Dew still shimmering like silver on the lawn, the first long shadows cast clearly on the grass. Somewhere behind her a bell rings, calling her to the next task. There is always a next thing waiting. She turns from the window to answer the call, and this morning moves forward without pause, just as it always has and just as it always will. There is one room in the house that is never cold, and that is the kitchen. Walking down from the shady stone corridor, you can feel the change right at the kitchen door. The air thickens and warms. It carries the smell of burning wood and hot iron, the scent of broth slowly simmering on a low flame since early morning, the aroma of flour and onions, and a rich brown fragrance from some food roasting out of sight. The light here is different from the pale glow upstairs. It is warm and deep, the kind of light that comes from a place that generates its own heat. At the centre of it all, radiating steady waves of warmth, is the massive kitchen stove, its flames humming quietly behind an iron grate. This is the true beating heart of the house. This is the kingdom of the cook, Mrs. Goodwin. Step just a little aside to avoid the working area and watch how a large kitchen operates. It's well worth your attention. Everything here is in motion, yet nothing is rushed. Behind it all, there is a kind of order, a deep and steady rhythm born from doing the same hard work day after day until it becomes part of the body, requiring no thought to keep going. A kitchen like this serves 3 to 4 meals every day of the year, and tonight there is a banquet to prepare. The work for that has already started and will not stop until the last dish is carried upstairs hours from now. Let's start at the beginning of the kitchen, at the fire. The stove is a huge black iron beast built into the chimney breast. It is far more than just a place to set pots. It is an engine. Behind its iron grate, the coal fire never fully dies. At night it is kept low, then stoked up again before dawn, because a cold stove means the kitchen cannot do anything. One side of the fire holds an oven heated by the flames. The other side usually has a large tank to supply the house with hot water. The whole stove needs constant tending all day, adding coal, managing the ashes, adjusting the dampers to send heat where it is needed. When roasting, the fire is ruffled up. When slow cooking, it is turned lower. The stove is a temperamental servant, and knowing its moods is half the art of the kitchen. Tend it well and it can do anything. Neglect it for an hour, and the entire evening meal will suffer. Looking after the stove's humblest and hottest details falls mostly to the youngest hands in the kitchen. Her name is Polly, and she is a scullery maid, which means she does the work that supports everything else, but stays unseen. She shovels coal into the fire and rakes out the ashes. She hauls the coal around. She fetches water and ferries endless buckets of it, because the kitchen runs on water as much as it does on fire. Most importantly, she cleans the entire set of pots, pans and dishes, a never-ending labour. There's a truth worth stating plainly here. In the long kitchen hierarchy from scullery maid through kitchen maid to cook, the scullery is the lowest rung. It is the hardest and least respected job in the whole house, but without it, nothing above can stand. A cook without clean pots can make nothing. The grandest feasts served at the most luxurious tables all begin somewhere out of sight with a girl scrubbing pots at a stone sink. The next time we admire the peak of anything, this fact deserves remembering. The pots themselves are worth a careful look. They are not like what we use today. The best pots are made of copper, heavy and beautiful. Copper is an outstanding cooking metal because it heats evenly and responds quickly to the fire. But copper pots need careful upkeep, which is Polly's burden. Each pot's inside is coated with a shining layer of tin, and this lining must stay intact and clean. The copper beneath can never touch the food. After every use, the pots must be scrubbed hard with sand, a little acid, and great physical effort until they gleam. Their outsides must be polished until they reflect the firelight and then hung in rows on the walls shining brightly. A kitchen wall lined with gleaming copper is among the most beautiful sights in any house. Every twinkle earned by the young girl's aching arms. Beauty and labour are just two sides of the same thing. Now, leaving the warmth of the stove, step into the coolest room in the house. The larder is a different world, a cool, dim, stone-floored room where the kitchen's warmth is not welcome. This is where the house's food stores are kept. In early autumn, it smells of harvest. Large cuts of meat lie under covers. Game begins to hang. Apples and pears just picked from the garden fill baskets, their sweet, crisp scents filling the cool air. There are jars of butter, wheels of cheese, and broad milk pans waiting for cream to rise. Everything has its place and is spaced properly apart. The coolness itself is a form of preservation. In a time without modern refrigeration, it is the only kind. Stepping from the blazing kitchen into the larder feels like entering a held breath. A quiet, shadowy space with a faint sweetness where time passes more slowly for the things kept inside. Part of the cook's workday happens at the door, and it has its own small ritual. The kitchen does not simply consume what is on hand. It must order supplies. In those days, goods were delivered to the house rather than the house sending someone out to buy them. All morning long, suppliers come by the back door in turn. The cook or housekeeper meets each one. The butcher delivers meats needed for the next few days. The pieces are carefully checked, weighed and assessed before being accepted. The baker arrives, then the fishmonger, vegetable seller and milkman follow. Every meeting, every order written down is part of a strict system in which the kitchen keeps its accounts as tightly as it keeps its pots, knowing exactly what each incoming item is worth in pennies. This involves a knowledge we have mostly forgotten, being able to identify food by sight and season, judging a piece of meat by eye, sensing what is good now and what still needs time. The cook's mind holds a calendar of the year's harvests, knowing what comes when, what is best this month and gone next, planning the meals by feel, with no need to check a book. Before the grand banquet is even thought about, the day's other meals must go out. Long before the guests sit down, family members must be fed. The kitchen starts early and prepares one meal after another in quiet order. The master's breakfasts are carried upstairs, the servants eat downstairs, then lunch, all prepared, served and cleared with smooth efficiency. Behind all this, the longer work of preparing the banquet moves unseen. The kitchen never does just one thing. It's always cooking the meal at hand while getting the next one ready. The steady trickle of everyday meals runs alongside the slow rising tide of the evening feast. Keeping both going without interference is a simple kind of arithmetic, all done in the cook's head, while her hands never stop working. Back in the kitchen, the cook is the centre of everything and misses nothing. Mrs. Goodwin works by the large table scrubbed hard in the centre of the room, where she can command her whole kingdom. Her knife moves steadily through a pile of onions. Tears brim in her eyes, but she pays no mind to them. Near the stove, a pot of broth murmurs and drips at its edge. It is the base for half the dishes made in this kitchen, needing constant skimming and careful tending, never fully done. Her hands move with a rhythm that looks almost magical, a calm surety born of doing it 10,000 times, almost with eyes closed. Through it all, she keeps the whole banquet in her mind, a dozen dishes at different stages, each needing attention at just the right moment, none to be forgotten. This banquet, like a precise and finely tuned machine, runs on her focus alone. It is worth pausing a moment here, because this is a kind of genius we seldom call genius. Running a kitchen like this means holding a vast and shifting plan entirely in your head, with no paper or help, then in a few hours having a dozen different things arrive on the dining table upstairs, all perfectly timed. When the soup is ready, the roast must be prepped. When the meat is sliced, the sauce must be hot. When the savoury courses are done, the sweets must be perfectly cooled. Nothing can be too early or too late. It is a feat requiring amazing memory, timing and judgment, enough to crumble most people. Yet the cook completes it twice a day in silence. She would be surprised to hear it called extraordinary. The most profound skills are often the quietest. From outside it looks as simple as a woman calmly slicing onions at a table on a usual afternoon. There is one pot that best tells the truth of the kitchen, the broth pot. It always sits by the fire and never fully cools. Anything that can add a drop of flavour goes in, bones picked clean from yesterday's meat, offcuts left over from carving, outer leaves and roots of vegetables, the parts careless hands throw away. All this goes in with water to slowly simmer for hours, releasing a deep brown richness that becomes the base for half the kitchen's dishes. It must be patiently skimmed, the grey foam lifted away until the liquid is clear, rich and golden. The broth pot is the kitchen's conscience because here, waste becomes valuable. In a thrifty household, scraps quietly turn back into nourishment. A good broth pot proves a cook's skill as surely as her finest dishes, because every kitchen spends money, but only a wise one saves and turns what is saved into delicious abundance. This is the deep grammar of the whole place, making much out of little. In a kitchen like this, the greatest virtue is not luxury but care, the close and constant attention that lets nothing go to waste and lets little be made into many things. Coal cinders are screened to see what can burn again. Drippings from the roast are collected. Bones go into the pot makes broth, the broth goes to the table. Leftovers from the table return to the kitchen and become another dish another day. Nothing is simply thrown away. Everything moves in a slow, patient cycle, used again and again until the last drop of goodness is squeezed out. There is an ancient wisdom here, from those who never had too much and dared not waste a scrap, gave their cooking thrift and cleverness, comfort that we slowly forgot as life got easier. As the work proceeds, the kitchen fills with a slowly building, unique atmosphere. The broth thickens on the fire, bread is baking somewhere, its warm, rounded scent spreading through the lower house and drifting up the back stairs. Something slowly turns in the heat, fat dropping into a pan with a sizzle. Water boils in a copper pot, steam rising to the high ceiling. Sounds mix together. The steady chop of a knife, the murmur from the broth pot, the scrape of Polly's brush on the sink, the soft roar of flames behind the iron grate. This place is busy and warm and deeply calm, the calm only found where those who know how do useful work with their practised hands. If a great house has a heart, this is the place that truly and warmly feels its life, the kitchen, in the long afternoon before the banquet. All this slow labour points toward one distant thing at the day's end. Everything happening here now is to prepare for the evening. The broth simmering will become soup hours later. The ingredients laid out, chopped and ready will turn into dishes carried upstairs in a long, careful sequence. A grand banquet does not magic itself into being at 8 o'clock. It is built hour by hour behind the scenes, tide by tide, until that moment comes when everything is right there, complete, perfect, and steaming as if by effortlessness. That's the kitchen's purpose, to create this peaceful illusion of effortlessness. All the work hides in the result. What people see is only the result. But now there are still many hours to dinner, and the kitchen goes on at its steady pace. Mrs. Goodwin lays down her knife and wipes her hands. For a moment she looks around her warm, busy kingdom. The fire burns steadily, the broth murmurs, Copper pots shine along the walls. Polly straightens by the sink, brushing a wet curl from her face with the back of her wrist. Outside, through the tall little window, the afternoon sunlight is slowly stretching and turning golden. There is still a long way to dinner. The house's heart continues beating, warm and sure, moving at its own slow pace toward perfection. There is a kind of quiet upstairs in the afternoon that you won't find anywhere else in the house. The morning's noise is long gone. The fire in the hearth has been lit and burns steadily. The room is clean and bright, and a great calm hangs over the bedroom, the dressing room, and the long, quiet landing. Downstairs, the kitchen continues working in its waves of heat. Here, in the soft light of an autumn afternoon, the whole house seems to hold its breath. In a dressing room draped with pale silk, light gently pours through tall windows onto thick carpets, and a maid named Miss Luo quietly tends to the house's finest belongings. Come upstairs and step into this stillness, letting the day's clamour fall away behind you. This is the gentlest corner of the house, and the work here is just as gentle. It takes no strong arms, no freezing early mornings, no heavy labour. Instead, it requires nimble hands, a keen eye, and great patience. Everything here is delicate, fragile, and easily damaged, silk, lace, and soft kid skin. Fabrics so sensitive that even a breath too heavy might leave a mark. The full art of the maid lies in keeping beautiful things beautiful, shielding them from everyday wear, dust, and the slow, steady assault of time. This work is slow, exacting, and almost tender. It fits the afternoon's calm perfectly. Before the work truly begins, the room itself deserves a moment of admiration. It is a quiet, orderly place, filled with feminine grace, where everything has a fixed spot. A long dressing mirror stands where the window light can bathe it fully. The dressing table holds a collection of small objects, combs lined up neatly, a silver-backed hand mirror, cut glass bottles catching the afternoon sun and casting scattered patches of light on the wall. A low stool sits before the mirror, a wardrobe stands against the wall, and a gentle fire burns softly in the hearth, chasing away the chill in the air. There is no noise or hurry here. The whole room is arranged for quietness and care, set apart from the house's heavy work, dedicated to slowly looking after those small beautiful things. Let's start with the wardrobe, the heart of this room. Against the wall stands a large wardrobe filled with gowns that are simply stunning. Deep autumnal silks, soft wools, and a pale evening gown that seems sewn from moonlight itself. Each one costly and finely made. Every piece must be cared for as if it almost has life. After each wearing, gowns are brushed lightly to dust off the day. They are carefully hung to keep their shape and avoid wrinkles. Pleats are shaken out, decorations arranged just so. The whole wardrobe is fiercely guarded against the small silent enemies of fine fabric. Damp that leaves stains and moths that chew away cloth. Fragrant herbs rest in the folds, and doors stay tightly closed against dust. This is a kind of guardianship, protecting beauty from the slow, patient decay of the world. The skills needed for all this are worth noting. They really exist, yet are mostly invisible. If we think of maids, we might picture them as a decorative, soft touch in a comfortable life. The truth is she is a highly skilled craftsman, armed with one of the house's strictest trades. She must know fabric as a carpenter knows wood, understanding what each type demands and what can destroy it. Her sewing must surpass that of ordinary hands, able to mend delicate lace with no mark, to tighten, loosen, alter and restore garments. She knows how to remove stains from silk without leaving a trace, a tiny science all of its own. None of this shows. The whole meaning of her craft is invisibility, making gowns appear always perfect. Within such mastery, quiet and wholly hidden in its results, lives a unique and silent pride. Most of the afternoon hours are given over to needlework, to small repairs. Miss Luo sits by the window where the light is best, holding a fine piece of work in her lap. Her needle moves with tiny, steady patience, threading back and forth, A length of lace is snagged and must be restitched stitch by stitch until the damage closes and disappears. A loose button is secured again. A torn hem is mended so neatly that no eye can detect it. This is the kind of work that cannot be rushed or faked, the kind only slow hands can do properly until it's done. In this quiet room, warm afternoon sunlight falls softly on her work, and there is a deep calm, a calm born of patiently managing difficult little things. There is one thing that makes this position different from every other one in the house. The lady's maid is closer to her mistress than anyone else who serves her. This closeness shapes everything about the job. She works in private rooms among private things. At the start and end of each day, she sees the mistress unguarded in ways no one downstairs ever does, and barely the world upstairs can imagine. This role requires not just skill with fabric and hair, but discretion. Deep, steady discretion belonging to someone who sees a lot but keeps her lips sealed. She guards tiny secrets of life as carefully as she guards those gowns. A good lady's maid is a quiet vault. The trust she earns is real, and she bears it without complaint. This unspoken confidentiality, like every stitch she sews, is part of her craft. In the house, this is a marvellous and intimate place, not family nor quite one of the servants, closer than both yet belonging fully to neither. To hold steady here takes a rare, calm temperament. Bringing small things back to life involves a quiet knowledge all its own, and many such jobs fill the afternoon. A lady's wardrobe holds more than gowns. Gloves made from soft, pale kid skin, dirtied after a single wear, must be cleaned with extreme care to restore their whiteness while keeping the fine leather supple and crease-free. Pressed, faded ribbons need to be revived. Feathers drooping on a lady's hat must be freshly curled. Yellowed lace gently restored to white. Each task is a tiny craft in itself, learned slowly and handled with a trove of remedies and methods. A good maid carries this knowledge with her. A careless one never bothers, silently reviving a worn, tired item so it can serve one more season as if new is one of this work's deepest satisfactions and its sharpest economy. The finest things always cost a lot, and a maid who can keep them lasting is priceless to a thrifty household. There is also the preparation of small evening accessories, each one kept exactly where it belongs. Gloves chosen for that night have been selected, cleaned and made perfect. Soft, delicate slippers are laid out. A shawl to ward off night chill, a fan, a small purse, every little thing that completes the lady's look has been gathered and readied so that when the moment comes, nothing needs searching for and nothing will be forgotten. This planning creates ease. The slow, quiet foresight of the afternoon unfolds, letting the evening flow smoothly. A good maid is always a step ahead, her mistress's ease at night built silently in that early preparation. Next comes the care of fine linens, which is an art in itself. The most exquisite things, lace and soft white linen, are too precious to endure any rough treatment. Making them fresh, crisp and perfect requires a skill few master. There is careful misting with water, the iron set just right, not so cold it leaves creases, not so hot it scorches fabric. Slow pressing of every fold, ruffle, and edge, till the whole piece looks fresh and bright as new. Iron temperature is judged by a long experience rather than any dial, known only to the practised hand. To iron a fine lace perfectly flat and set it aside flawless and ready is a small triumph of patience over the most delicate material. As she works, the room fills with the warm, clean scent of ironed linen, one of the simplest, most comforting smells in the world. As the afternoon lengthens, the true purpose of the day draws near. There is a dinner party tonight. The mistress must dress for it with care. This is the highest duty of the lady's maid and the one that demands the most of her, preparing her mistress for the evening. It is far more than simply putting on a gown. It is a slow, extremely delicate ritual that begins long before the gown is worn. The chosen dress is checked once more and made ready. All the silent tools for the evening's preparations are gathered and laid out into order. The mistress enters, and the room softly shifts into its work. Together they move through the long, familiar steps, the maid's hand steady, gentle, and unhurried, the lady fully trusting this practiced care. If you have ever been dressed by hands more skilled than your own at some grand event, you will know the wonderful sense of ease this brings. Standing still to be cared for by someone who knows exactly what she is doing is a curious kind of relief. Buttons you could never do up yourself are fastened by another. The fall of your gown is lifted and adjusted perfectly by eyes that see what you cannot. You need only stand quietly, letting yourself be ready. There is trust here, a surrender, almost like a childhood memory. Being looked after by hands you don't have to think about, hands that arrange everything properly. Under the soft light of the dressing room, as daylight fades outside, the gown settles perfectly into place, and the image in the long mirror slowly transforms into the form that will appear at the dinner table. Next comes the hair, the true masterpiece of the lady's maid. In those years, hairdressing was no small matter, and a maid who could make hair look beautiful was valued above nearly all others. Hair is slowly pinned up with great care, combed, shaped, secured with pins, each piece placed precisely until loose. Ordinary hair becomes a refined, perfect, and elegant style. Miss Luo works behind her mistress, her hands moving with the tiny exact motions honed over years of practice, the comb and pins gently turning the ladies' heads to catch the light. This requires patience, a real eye for shape and balance, and fingers steady like an artist's. When it is done, every strand is exactly where it should be. The long, quiet afternoon of preparation culminating in this perfect and graceful result. The last items are the smallest, finest jewels. From the jewellery box come the few chosen pieces for the evening, the final touches. A necklace clasped at the nape of the neck, a bracelet closed with a clasp, earrings. They are the brightest things in the room, catching the light and reflecting tiny sharp points of brilliance. With them, the picture is complete. The lady stands ready before the mirror. From her hair to the hem of her gown, every part of her tended and perfectly presented by these hands that have worked quietly all afternoon, all to bring her to this moment. The bell will soon ring. She will go downstairs to greet her guests, and the long work in the dressing room will follow her invisibly into the bright evening below. The room falls quiet once again, the maid left alone inside. The ladies have gone downstairs. The light now falls on the empty floor, on the set-aside combs, on the gathered hairpins, on the day dresses waiting to be cleaned. Miss Luo moves through the room slowly, tidying as she goes. She puts everything back in its place, folding away the long afternoon. Outside the tall windows, the autumn dusk has fallen, casting a melancholy soft blue over the garden. Far below, faint sounds drift upward. Whispers as guests arrive, the warm glow of light from a house prepared for a gathering. She lingers a moment in the dressing room's stillness, the quiet work of the day finished and carefully arranged around her. She lifts the oil lamp, dims the flame, and quietly steps out, leaving this gentle room to its peace. At her waist, on a circular ring, hung keys that could open to almost every lock in the estate. In a comfortable room at the centre of the ground floor, surrounded by cupboards, shelves, and a tall locked wardrobe, the housekeeper sat at her desk in the evening light. Her name was Mrs. Lenton, though everyone downstairs called her the lady. She had no husband and never had one. The title referred to her position rather than marital status. She was the second most powerful person in the house, responsible only to the lady upstairs, and her authority was quiet but absolute. The visible sign of this authority was the bunch of keys she carried with her everywhere, which set her apart from other servants and jingled softly with every step. Come sit a while in the housekeeper's room, the warm and orderly heart of everything downstairs. This was the cosiest room below stairs, a gathering place for senior servants and where the housekeeper held her small court. Here she ate, kept accounts, and quietly supervised the vast stores that kept the household running. Everything the house consumed, food, candles, soap, linen, and hundreds of other essentials, passed through her hands or her tallies at some point. She was the guardian of the household's wealth, responsible for safekeeping, distribution, and accountability of every ounce. The keys were her tools to fulfill these duties, but her oversight was not only over goods, but also over a large portion of the personnel. The maids of the house answered mainly to her. She chose them, assigned their duties, supervised their work, and resolved the small disputes and friction that arose daily in a crowded household. She rose early this morning, earlier than most, to ensure the great machine of the house got started. Lighting the fires, opening the rooms, preparing breakfast. She watched it all silently throughout the day. Her authority downstairs was real, but its brilliance lay not in commanding, but in being the calm presence who knew exactly how the house should work. Simply by always being there with quiet confidence, she helped everything around her run smoothly. Let us begin with the keys, for they reveal the truth behind her entire status. A great house is full of locked doors, not out of distrust of its people, but out of pure common sense for order. The storerooms are locked, the linen cupboards are locked, the cabinets holding tea, sugar and rare spices are locked, as are those with the finest china, the distillery for making preserves, and in a dozen other places. And all the keys to these places hung on the circular ring at the housekeeper's waist. Holding these keys meant holding the household's trust. Nothing valuable left without her, nothing taken without her permission. The careful economic operation of the house depended on a steady, honest, watchful person controlling the flow of everything. The keys were heavy, they were never left lying around or lent out. These may look like the plainest badge of office in the world, but they were one of the most absolute badges there were. The first task of the evening was issuing supplies, done very carefully. The kitchen needed tomorrow's food, the maids needed soap and candles. Nothing was taken from the shelves by chance. It had to be requested, measured out, then handed over. Mrs. Lenton rose, took her key ring, and went to the storeroom. She found the right key, turned the lock, and opened the door to reveal a quiet and splendid place in the great house. Row upon row of shelves held the finest goods, neatly arranged and labelled. Tea was kept in tins, sugar in cubes, spices tucked in drawers that gave off a sudden warmth from distant lands when opened. She measured exactly what was needed, neither generous nor stingy, set it down for collection and recorded it. Then she locked the door again. There was no waste here, no shortage, only a balanced, steady flow managed by hands that had done it thousands of times. In all this measuring and locking, there is something worth pausing to consider, which may seem severe to modern eyes. Today we are not used to lives where even sugar must be locked away and portioned by spoonful. Seen from our standpoint, it might seem stingy or untrusting, but this is a misunderstanding. In a large household with many expensive goods flowing through it, order is not cold cruelty. It is the only thing that keeps a family from sliding slowly into waste, confusion and ruin. Locked doors and carefully recorded ounces are not about suspicion. They are about care, the close daily attention that makes something large and complex work smoothly and last. Being trusted to maintain such order, to be the quiet, reliable centre the whole house depended on, carried its own true dignity. As an old saying goes, managing small wealth well is better than wasting great riches. The housekeeper was living proof of that. Next she turned to the linen, one of the household's main treasures. The huge linen cupboard opened to reveal rows of stacked household linens, sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths, napkins. Many were fine quality, all costly, some older than anyone currently living in the house. These were regularly and carefully inventoried. Linen was wealth, and wealth needed to be tracked. Each piece was checked for small damage from use, thinning fabric, worn edges, cracking seams. Those needing repair were set aside for mending because a small hole found early might take an hour to fix, but left alone it could ruin a whole sheet. Her hand ran over the smooth, cool folds, checking and sorting. Lavender and dried herbs tucked among them gave a faint, fresh scent. The smell of good linen passed down through generations. Year after year, keeping such a large stock of linen intact, fresh, and accounted for was a quiet art she had mastered. Under her keys there was also another kind of store that required gentler handling, the china and glassware, the house's finest tableware. Porcelain brought out only for guests, and glassware that rang sharply when tapped, were kept locked in their own cupboards, specially overseen by her. These could not be replaced like sheets. Many were age sets, and one broken piece meant the set was incomplete. Damage by a careless hand could not be easily paid for. The finest porcelain was washed by her hand or under her direct supervision, carefully cleaned in soft water, dried, and returned to its assigned place with care. It was inventoried like the linen. A set was only a set when complete. When the grand dinner required them, they would be brought out shining and perfect, then washed, counted, and put back when the night ended. The quiet daily concern for keeping these items safe and whole had become a source of silent pride over the years. Among all the areas she managed, the distillery was perhaps the most charming and busiest this season. The distillery was where the finer preservation work took place, making jams, jellies, candies, and storing up all the year's good things for the lean months ahead. In early autumn, it was a place of deep satisfaction as the garden and orchard gave their last rich gifts, fruits that had to be gathered and saved before rotting. Newly arrived fruits, late plums, apples, pears, and berries picked from hedgerows, were transformed here into delights to brighten winter tables. Jams, jellies, preserves, fruits bottled in syrup, the sweet, dark, rich bounty of the year sealed in jars on shelves. The room was filled with the warm aroma of fruit and sugar cooking, one of the most comforting smells of the year. The jars filled, capped, labelled, and lined up as a bright row, catching and keeping summer sunshine to fight the coming cold. Making preserves was only half the work here. The distillery was a year-round place of fine sweet craft. This was where the more refined table treats were made, work too delicate and fussy for the large kitchen's hot, busy environment. Fancy cakes and biscuits, candied peels and fruits dipped in sugar, dried, dipped again until sparkling. Fruit wines and sweet waters, garden fruits and flowers extracted into clear bright bottles that held the taste of bummer in a spoonful. It was work of patience, precision, almost alchemical, turning fruit, sugar and flowers into little jewels for the table, requiring careful hands and deep quiet knowledge. The distillery was both the household's candy shop and its sweet guardian, presided over by the housekeeper like her own small fragrant kingdom, where time was turned slowly and lovingly into delightful food. There is a deep and ancient comfort woven through this work, worth a moment's thought. Storing the harvest, catching and sealing the peak of the year to keep it safe is one of the oldest satisfactions in the world. It is the answer of cautious people to the passing seasons, a way to prepare for scarcity by hoarding plenty. Every full jar on the shelf was a small promise made to oneself in winter. Bright summer spots to be opened months later, and fill the air with warmth and sunlight. There was no anxiety in the stock storeroom, only a deep, steady calm born of knowing, whatever winter brings, the house was ready, the shelves full, the long dark months quietly taken care of. Mrs. Lenton walked among the neat shining jars with a satisfaction that made the future a little safer, one jar at a time. Running through all this was the thread of accounts, the careful reckoning of every item. Back at her desk, Mrs. Lenton opened the ledger and used her neat handwriting to record this small piece of history. What came in, what went out, what was bought, and what was spent. A great house needs not just managing but accounting, and the housekeeper was its accountant. Every shilling spent had to be known, recorded and accounted for so that, when needed, all accounts could be honestly and clearly presented to the lady of the house. Perhaps bookkeeping by lamplight was dull work, but it was the backbone of the trust she was given. Without honesty to match, the keys meant nothing, and this ledger was the honest record, faithfully written day after day in clear ink for anyone to check. The running of a great house relied on many things, but beneath it all it relied on trust, and the ledger was where that trust was kept. It is worth considering how strange and special a place the housekeeper held in the household. She was not part of the family, and never could be, yet she was not exactly a servant. at least not like the maids and scullery girls. She stood in the middle, a bridge between the two worlds of the house, passing the lady's wishes downward and reflecting the household's order upward. She belonged fully to neither side and within her domain answered to almost no one. Downstairs, her word was almost law. Upstairs, she was the only servant treated almost like a colleague by the lady. They met daily to plan, account and decide. It was a position with real power, quietly held, usually given to a woman promoted slowly over years of steady skill and reliability. The keys were not given lightly. They were earned through a lifetime, proving oneself worthy of holding them. Now the night had truly fallen, and her day of managing was drawing to a close. Supplies were handed out, linen was checked, and pieces needing repair set aside. Jam jars were cooling in the distillery. The sweetness of the year safely bottled. The ledger was finished, the ink dried and closed. Deep in the house came the sounds of the evening meal starting. Its grandest event of the night was building to a peak. And those distant noises all relied in one way or another on the goods she kept and distributed. Mrs. Lenton sat a moment in the quiet, neat light of her room, the keys resting silently beside her. Then she stood to make her final rounds to ensure all was as it should be, just as she had done every evening for many years. She was the stable centre around which the whole bright estate quietly revolved. As the light outside gradually dimmed, the grand mansion began to fill, room by room, with soft golden candlelight. In the dining room, the long table had already been set and was now quietly waiting, bathed in the warm glow it created. Tall candelabras held lit candles. The flickering flames cast lively, warm light over the white linen, shining silverware, and polished wood's deep sheen. The whole room seemed to draw itself in from an autumn dusk, becoming a tranquil golden space full of anticipation. At the centre of it all moved tonight's key figure with quiet and steady confidence. His name was Mr. Hollis, the house's butler, responsible for overseeing all the household services. From this moment until the last guest departed, whether the evening ran smoothly depended largely on him. Standing here with me in the soft light, watch how the mansion's evening unfolds. The butler is like the conductor of this quiet dinner symphony, an art far more intricate than it appears to those sitting at the table. Everything must happen in the right order and at exactly the right time, smoothly and silently, as if it were all happening automatically. Dishes must be served and cleared without drawing attention. Wine glasses must never be empty or poured too early. The long ceremony of a grand dinner, each dish presented in solemn sequence, must unfold without a single slip, pause, or chaotic moment. And the person who makes all this happen, ideally, looks like they are doing nothing at all. The pinnacle of service is the art of invisibility. The better it is done, the less you notice it, and the butler is the master of this invisible craft. Before any of this begins, there is the matter of the wine, which requires him to descend deep into the mansion's underground. The wine cellar is the butler's private domain, his undisputed realm. Now, holding a candle, he walks down the stairs into the cool, dark and profound silence. Here, in the steady, lasting coolness of the cellar, the mansion's wines rest in their racks. Bottle after bottle lies dark and horizontal. Some have been stored for many years, all waiting for their moment. The wine cellar demands patience. The butler tends like a gardener tending a slow-growing garden. He knows which bottles are ready to enjoy and which still need time, which should be drunk this year, and which will be better kept for 5 more years. By candlelight, he selects tonight's wines, handling each bottle gently. Aged wine cannot tolerate shaking. Deep below the brightly lit rooms upstairs that await guests, there is a profound stillness, a cool, dark patience from which tonight's warmth is drawn. Managing the wine cellar is a true and remarkable craft, deserving our time and respect. The butler must understand wine better than anyone in the house. He knows the characteristics of different kinds, how to store and handle them for peak condition, when they mature, and how to serve them. He keeps a ledger for the cellar where every bottle is logged when it comes in and crossed off when opened, so the cellar's inventory down to the last bottle is always precisely known. This is a responsibility trusted at the highest level. The things he oversees are both valuable and beloved, and a careless cellar manager could quietly ruin everything over years. In contrast, a great butler is the patient guardian of one of the truest pleasures in the house. The reputation of a fine dining table depends far more on the careful, unseen tending in the cool darkness long before the cork is pulled, something the guests never know. Wine cellar work is far more than just picking bottles. Many wines arrive young and must be personally nurtured by the butler until they mature. Over the years, large shipments of wine came in not ready to drink but needing aging, and the slow craft of bringing them to their best state rested on his shoulders. There is the work of uncorking and bottling bottle after bottle, carefully sealing each with a skilled hand. There is the work of placing filled bottles horizontally into their designated racks, arranged neatly and securely so they remain undisturbed through months or even years required to mature. There is the patient waiting, knowing the aging progress of each rack, which are nearly ready, which still need several years. This slow, tedious, yet highly skilled work happens in cold, dark basements with no audience. Years later, the joy brought by a fine wine at a warm dining table is the late fruit of that labour. A well-managed cellar is like a careful letter written to the future, a letter the butler patiently composes bottle by bottle. After selecting the wine, he turns to setting the dining table, where the candlelight truly comes into play. Silverware is brought out and placed in order, each piece cleaned to reflect the candle flames on its surface. Fine glassware is arranged neatly at each seat. The entire grand dinner setup is done with extreme care, almost reverence. The way the table is set is the first course of any dinner. It is the first sight guests have before tasting anything. Under the candlelight, everything comes alive, the silver gleams, the glasses catch tiny sparkles, and the white tablecloth glows softly. Standing in a fully prepared, brightly lit dining room, awaiting guests is among the most beautiful scenes a mansion can present. It's a calm, golden picture of order, abundance and care, each part placed by hands that have done this hundreds of times yet take pride in every detail. Behind all this is a room guests never see, the butler's own pantry. The pantry is also under the butler's care, just like the wine cellar is his domain. It is the place where the finest items for the table are stored and tended. The best plates and most delicate glasses never go to the dish pit for rough cleaning. They belong to him. They are washed by his own hands or under his close supervision, cleaned very carefully in soft water, dried and returned to their places. A fine glass is fragile. It easily loses clarity or chips. Keeping an entire set of glasses clear and intact over years of dinners, and preserving that crisp clink when glasses touch, requires patience and gentleness not expected from a man in a dark suit and serious expression. Long after tonight's dinner ends, he will return here to wash, dry and store every piece, so tables can be set as perfectly tomorrow, the next day, and every year after. The pantry is the quiet workshop behind the bright display, and the guests at the table almost never realise how much effort sustains it. The guests come downstairs now, and the long ceremony of the dinner begins. It proceeds in a slow, solemn sequence, dish by dish, with the butler moving confidently and silently at its core. The first course is served by him personally. He oversees the other servants bringing and clearing food, directing them with a look, a slight gesture, or a soft word. The whole dance-like flow is under his command. He remains ready near the silverware cabinet, with the wine poured at exactly the right moment and glasses never left empty for long. Plates come and go so smoothly the table never seems empty or crowded. The huge machine of the meal runs silently and seamlessly. Throughout, the butler is everywhere yet unnoticeable. He is seen but somehow unseen. He is the calm, steady centre of this bright night, demanding nothing, missing no detail, present every moment but rarely drawing attention. If you have ever truly been served perfectly by someone who masters their craft, you know what that remarkable grace feels like. The cup seems full just before you reach for it. Plates come and go before you even notice. All night you have the feeling that everything you might want has already been quietly anticipated and provided, and all you need to do is enjoy your company and conversation. This seamless care is a gift, the invisible result of immense skill and effort. The long day's work in the kitchen, cellar, and pantry culminates here in a night that seems effortless to enjoy. That is where its success lies. When the effort leaves no trace, it is perfect. What that trust truly means deserves a closer look, because it is among the highest a person in a mansion can earn. The butler stands above all the footmen. The house's most precious things, wine, silverware, and when night falls, even the sleeping mansion's security, are entrusted to his hands. This position is earned slowly over many years by demonstrating steadiness, honesty, and reliability. It is never given to those who are merely clever or quick, but only to the truly dependable. A person who can be trusted with the wine cellar keys and the silverware inventory, giving no cause for doubt. Such a man carries solemnity, not coldness but its opposite, a calm confidence born of earning and determined to keep that great trust. This mansion depends on him, and he knows it. Like a strong foundation bearing a weight, he carries this burden with ease. The dinner finally comes to an end, and the candle-lit rooms reach their warmest moment. Dessert is served, the sweet craft from the distillery, fruit and preserves on bright plates. The candles burn down a little more, the light softening and turning even more golden. Conversation becomes relaxed and lively. The long dining table shimmers against the deepening night, like the only bright heart in the surrounding dark countryside. This is the moment the entire day has been preparing for, from the cold, dark hours before dawn until now. The mansion brightly lit, guests in full attendance, the atmosphere warm. All the silent work of the day has brought about this warm, golden hour. The butler stands by the silverware cabinet, watching it all and making sure everything is flawless. He is the steady guardian of this easy evening. Every night must end, and finally the guests rise as that bright moment gently fades. Guests leave their seats. The candles are nearly burnt out. Slowly, room by room, the warm and grand night begins to fold and wind down. The fire in the hearth dims. Voices grow quieter, fading one and two at a time. As the mansion gradually falls asleep, silence settles over everything. The butler's last and most solemn duty of the day is upon him, a duty belonging only to him, to secure and protect the house during the night. This is the quiet, serious core of the trust placed in him, fulfilled every night of his life the same way. First comes the silverware, those precious pieces that adorn the table, all gathered and counted without fail, safely locked back in place. The count must be exact, it always must be correct. Holding his candle, he moves through the dark mansion, room by room. He checks each hearth to be sure all fires are safe, subdued and guarded, leaving no stray spark that could threaten the sleeping house. He inspects the windows and locks them tightly. Finally, he reaches the main door and turns the heavy keys in sequence, sealing the mansion off from the night. This is an ancient solemn patrol, an act of protecting a sleeping household, placing a guardian between everyone resting inside and the dark world outside. He has done this thousands of times. Tonight he does it with the same carefulness as the first. In the end, only one small task remains. The doors and windows are securely shut, silent, the fires safe, the silverware counted and stored. Everyone upstairs is in bed, and the same downstairs. The magnificent mansion that was full of light and warmth just an hour ago sinks back into darkness and quiet, room by room. The butler stands in the last lit room holding his final candle. For a moment he listens to the deep stillness of the sleeping mansion he has just locked and made safe for the night. He lifts the candle, leans toward the flame, and gently blows it out. Darkness falls soft and complete, and the mansion finally drifts into full sleep. Outside, the autumn night quietly and coldly envelops the silent mansion. The stars slowly spin above its dark roof and shuttered windows. Inside, in its many rooms, the whole household sleeps. The masters in warm beds, the servants in beds beneath the eaves, all embraced by the same deep rural night. The fires are out, the doors locked. The long day is completely over. In just a few hours, in the cold and dark before dawn, before anyone stirs, it will all begin again, quietly and peacefully. And just like that, the mansion drifted into sleep as a long day came to an end. Before we leave it to the night, stay with me for a moment longer and think about all the quiet hands that kept it going. Those who rose in the cold while everyone else was still asleep, and the person who locked the doors after everyone had gone to bed. The ones who lit the fires, swept the rooms and tended to the kitchen's warm and beating heart. Those who kept the linen smelling fresh, polished the silver until it gleamed, and sealed the sweetness of a whole year inside jars. None of them expected to be remembered. Their whole craft was to leave no trace of themselves, making comfort seem natural, effortless, and taken for granted. It never just happened by chance. It was created day after day by people whose names the world mostly forgot. If on this night you could spare a little attention to them, something they never asked for, that alone holds a gentle kind of beauty. Maybe tonight, as you lie warm and cozy in your own bed, you can feel a small connection that stretches across the long years to these unseen hands. The warmth, the quiet, and that soft, ordinary comfort surrounding you as darkness falls is exactly the kind of comfort they made every day for others. No matter how quietly you care for the people in your own life, in this way you share a spirit with them. If something from this story left a mark with you, a room, a chore or a tiny moment, I'd be glad to hear about it. Feel free to leave a few words below about where you were listening tonight, or which corner of that old house you'd like to linger in the longest. There's no rush. If it's easier in the morning, you can wait until dawn to share. If these quiet journeys help you find rest, we warmly welcome your company. This is a small channel telling slow, gentle histories of everyday life, night after night, journeying through eras all over the world, medieval times and ancient courts, ancient Rome, Egypt and Greece, grand mansions and humble homes, and the kitchens, alleys and hearths of those long gone. We're very glad to have you along for the ride, growing slowly with every peaceful story. Thank you for spending this part of your night here. It means far more than you realise. None of this asks anything of you now. At this moment, there is only the dark mansion, the cold autumn stars above it, and the deep, beautiful peace of everyone sleeping within. The fires have gone out, the doors are locked, everything is safe and sound, and there is nothing left for you to do but rest. Slow your breath down, shed the weight of this day completely, and let yourself gently sink into this quiet. The mansion is sleeping, and now you can sleep too. Good night, and sweet dreams.